The palace was left in utter disbelief as Princess Anne exposed Queen Camilla's covert maneuvers behind King Charles's back. From secretly reassigning royal duties to redirecting key events, Anne's bold revelation didn't just cause tension, it shattered royal silence and drew a line between tradition and quiet ambition. Palace shakes after Princess Anne reveals Camilla's secret moves. What began as a standard strategy meeting at Windsor Castle took a dramatic turn when Princess Anne stood up and shattered the room's calm with a revelation no one expected. With a voice that was steady but unmistakably sharp, Anne exposed a series of secret moves, allegedly made by Queen Camilla without full family oversight. The actions included quietly rerouting royal engagements, manipulating schedules, and marginalizing key roles held by Anne and the Waleses. According to senior aides present, Anne didn't lash out. Instead, she delivered her words with precision. "We cannot operate on deceit in this house." Those in the room described her tone as controlled fury. She laid out how Camilla had bypassed traditional palace structures, redirecting Commonwealth events and public appearances that had long been under Anne's or Sophie's portfolios. No prior discussions, no formal agreement, just quiet reassignments executed through Camilla's inner circle. The silence that followed was immediate. One aide described it as the kind of silence that chills the room. Every face froze. King Charles, present for the meeting, was reportedly stunned into silence. His eyes reportedly fell to the floor, and he did not initially speak. Camilla, sitting just feet from Anne, kept her gaze fixed, her expression unreadable. By the time the meeting ended, the atmosphere had changed. This wasn't just about a scheduling dispute. It was about trust, authority, and a quiet reshaping of royal power. And in one unflinching moment, Anne had pulled back the curtain, exposing fractures that could no longer be ignored. What Camilla did behind the scenes, the real power moves. Behind the polished exterior of the monarchy, Queen Camilla had been making quiet but significant moves, ones that, until Anne spoke, had gone largely unnoticed beyond her inner circle. Sources revealed that Camilla, through her private office, began reassigning select patronages and royal engagements to herself or trusted allies, bypassing traditional royal coordination processes. Appearances that had long belonged to Princess Anne, Sophie, Duchess of Edinburgh, and even events earmarked for the Wales family were redirected without full transparency. Notably, several Commonwealth outreach visits originally set aside for Anne were quietly shifted to Camilla's calendar. In one instance, the internal briefing language for a humanitarian event in Ghana was altered last minute, removing Anne's role and placing Camilla front and center. A former aide noted, "It wasn't chaos. It was method. She knew exactly what she was doing." Camilla also reportedly adjusted press briefings to emphasize her visibility while downplaying Anne's decades-long work. These changes weren't illegal, but they bent the unspoken code of internal respect and consensus, especially dangerous within such a symbolic institution. "She's playing the long game," one staffer admitted, and Anne just broke the silence. For months, it seemed like subtle repositioning, but Anne's reveal proved it was a coordinated power shift, one that many in the palace saw but feared to confront. Until now. Anne's breaking point. Why she spoke now. For over 5 decades, Princess Anne has been the monarchy's unshakable foundation, the steel spine of royal duty. She's clocked more public engagements than any other royal, often flying economy, declining security, and avoiding the spotlight unless service demanded it. She's never courted press, never played internal politics, and yet, she has commanded quiet respect both within the firm and among the British public. But even steel has limits. According to multiple palace insiders, Anne had long been aware of Camilla's expanding influence, not in a formal capacity, but in subtler shifts. Engagements reassigned, briefings rerouted, appearances reshuffled, and most notably, public duties being handled through Camilla's office without Anne's knowledge. These weren't just scheduling errors, they felt deliberate. Twice, Anne reportedly confronted Queen Camilla in private, in her usual understated, measured way. She asked for clarity about conflicting patronages, about a few sudden adjustments to royal events, where their roles seemed to blur. Camilla responded with graceful vagueness, offering no apology, no accountability, just deflection. Anne let it go, until the Naval Veterans event. This engagement, close to Anne's heart and deeply tied to her decades-long association with the military, was suddenly reassigned to Camilla, with no prior consultation, no explanation, no notice. It wasn't just a scheduling matter, it was personal. Anne had attended that event for over 20 years, often meeting families of veterans, shaking the hands of those who served, keeping their stories alive in quiet dignity. That was the final blow. She knew then that silence could no longer serve the institution or herself. During the Windsor meeting, with senior royals and aides present, Anne spoke clearly and without hesitation. Enough is enough. This isn't royal duty. This is theater. The words cut through the room like a blade. Her voice, low but steady, carried the weight of decades, not of ego, but of earned experience. She wasn't just frustrated. She was defending the spirit of monarchy. That service should be authentic, not curated, consistent, not opportunistic. To Anne, what Camilla was attempting wasn't modernization, it was erasure. And staying silent, she believed, would make her complicit in a version of monarchy that cared more about optics than obligation. A senior aide close to Anne confided, "She didn't speak up to defend herself. She did it to defend the meaning of service, something she's lived her entire life." Her breaking point wasn't emotional. It was ethical. It was about protecting the monarchy's deeper identity from being reshaped by quiet ambition. Anne didn't speak for drama. She spoke because someone had to. And in doing so, she changed the entire tone of the room, and perhaps the future of the firm itself. King Charles blindsided. His reaction to Anne's disclosure. King Charles, already grappling with ongoing health concerns and mounting public scrutiny, found himself utterly blindsided by the revelation that struck at the very heart of royal trust. During the tense, closed-door meeting at Windsor, Princess Anne's composed but forceful confrontation sent ripples not just through the room, but through the monarch himself. As Anne concluded her sharp account of Camilla's unsanctioned moves, including the quiet rerouting of engagements and the redirection of royal visibility, Charles reportedly turned toward Camilla with a stunned expression and asked under his breath, "Did you truly override the rota?" Camilla, seated beside him, remained composed. Her reply was deliberately vague. "I was advised the adjustments made sense." That brief exchange, husband and wife, brother and sister, captured the emotional rift opening beneath the throne. One witness described the king's face as going from confused to crestfallen, realizing that decisions made in his name might have bypassed both his awareness and his family's unity. Shortly after the meeting, Charles quietly called for his private secretary and instructed a full review of recent engagement allocations, event assignments, and communication trails. What shocked senior aides wasn't just the investigation, but that Charles ordered it without passing through Camilla's office, a break from the usual coordination flow. A longtime advisor revealed this was the first time His Majesty made such a move independently, and that tells us everything. He's not angry. He's concerned. Privately, the king is said to be wrestling with a painful and personal conflict. For years, Camilla has been his emotional anchor, especially during illness and royal transitions. But his sister Anne has been his steadfast ally for a lifetime, loyal, discreet, unshakably dutiful. That bond now feels tested. Behind palace doors, some say Charles feels the weight of a blind spot, one that allowed internal power shifts to unfold under the guise of support. Others believe he's confronting something even more uncomfortable, that Camilla's growing public role may have quietly crossed from helpful to overreaching, and that his own reluctance to question her might have enabled the current tension. One palace source remarked, "It's not just a scheduling issue. It's a wake-up call. For the king, for the firm, and for how trust is kept or broken in the House of Windsor." Now Charles faces a dilemma that no protocol can solve: how to restore balance between the woman he loves and the family legacy he's sworn to protect. And in the shadow of Anne's quiet but firm stand, the king is left to reckon with choices made too quietly, too long. Camilla's Inner Circle: How she built quiet influence. Queen Camilla's influence wasn't built with declarations or grand gestures. It was crafted in whispers, timing, and quiet recalibration. While her public image remained rooted in warmth and support for King Charles, her behind-the-scenes presence began to expand, particularly over the past year. As King Charles's health challenges increased, and Princess Catherine took time to recover from her own health struggles, a vacuum of visibility opened up. And into that space, Camilla stepped with precision. She began rebuilding her advisory circle, drawing in loyal aides from outside the traditional royal rota. Many of them were seasoned media professionals and former political advisors who understood narrative control far better than ceremonial protocol. Importantly, they weren't bound by palace tradition. They were bound by loyalty to Camilla. They began quietly reworking briefing documents, repositioning event ownership, and shaping press language in subtle ways. Royal watchers noticed a shift. Statements once listing the royal family began highlighting Queen Camilla's individual contributions, even in joint engagements. One insider described her strategy as, "It's not what she says, it's what she silently redirects. That's how power moves." She wasn't aggressive, but persistent. She didn't need to demand authority. She curated it. With Charles stepping back, she took on appearances formerly reserved for the sovereign, not by force, but by convenience. Behind closed doors, staff in the Lord Chamberlain's office began flagging bypassed protocols, but few dared challenge the rising queen consort. Her proximity to Charles gave her cover, and her methodical approach made pushback seem petty. To the public, her increased presence was seen as dedication. But inside the firm, there was growing concern that her influence was not just filling a void. It was creating a new royal order. And then came Anne, and her quiet, thunderous disruption. As one courtier whispered, "She built an empire on etiquette, and Anne walked in like truth with a torch." The royal household in turmoil, aftershocks of Anne's revelation. Princess Anne's revelation didn't just shake the senior royals, it sent shockwaves down every hallway of Buckingham Palace. What had begun as murmurs of scheduling oddities suddenly exploded into a full-blown internal review. Within hours of Anne's confrontation at Windsor, the Lord Chamberlain's office, the department overseeing ceremonial and operational integrity, was summoned to begin a quiet but urgent inquiry. Their mission? To trace back Camilla's intervention in engagements and communications, identify decision-makers, and determine how far the breaches went. A staffer involved in royal scheduling put it plainly. This wasn't one misstep. It was a series, and they all pointed in one direction. Multiple departments, from scheduling and press to digital communications, were pulled into closed-door sessions. Staff, who had worked closely with Camilla's private office, were now facing questions about authorization, timing, and protocol violations. Several upcoming events were quietly cancelled or reassigned. Notably, a joint charity appearance featuring both Anne and Camilla was removed from the calendar without explanation. Coordination teams were split up and redeployed, a sign that trust, even among longtime staff, had eroded. But it wasn't just operations that were affected, it was the atmosphere itself. A once predictable palace machine began humming with caution. Staff no longer spoke freely in hallways. Some avoided informal gatherings, unsure of where allegiances lay. Loyalty was no longer assumed. It was being tracked. One courtier described the feeling vividly. It felt like someone had pulled the alarm. Only now are we realizing the building's been burning slowly for months. For decades, unspoken rules had governed the royal household. Lines of respect, protocol, and division of influence. But Anne's intervention shattered the illusion that those lines were still intact. Anne lit a match, another insider said. And what's burning now isn't just the rota, it's the monarchy's old scaffolding. With every reassignment and reevaluation, the cracks grew wider. And for the first time in years, royal tradition felt not preserved, but shaken. William and Catherine's quiet awareness, their role in the fallout. Though neither Prince William nor Princess Catherine was present during the confrontation between Camilla and Anne, the aftershocks reached them quickly. According to palace insiders, William received a private debrief the same evening, and while the details surprised some, William was not caught off guard. He had already noticed a pattern. For months, William had been quietly tracking subtle but consistent changes in the royal rota. Appearances originally intended for him and Catherine were redirected without consultation. Key events with significant press value, especially those tied to mental health or early childhood causes long associated with Catherine, had suddenly featured Camilla's presence instead. On several occasions, briefing notes were altered last minute, and Kensington Palace aides were given minimal or conflicting information. Still, William chose silence. Out of loyalty to his father, King Charles, and a desire to keep internal matters private, he refrained from raising concerns. But when Anne spoke up with clarity and force, William reportedly felt both vindicated and grateful. He is said to have reached out to Anne within 24 hours in a direct but heartfelt message of support. According to a source close to the family, William told her, "You spoke for more than yourself. You spoke for all of us." Catherine, still in a quiet stage of her health recovery, was informed of the incident by William in private. Her response, though soft-spoken, was piercing in meaning. A close friend recalled her saying, "Anne sees clearly when others choose comfort. That's why her voice matters." The moment solidified something deeper. Not just personal loyalty, but a strategic understanding among the royals who prioritize duty over optics. William, Anne, and Prince Edward, long seen as steady hands rather than headline makers, have now formed what palace insiders call the Quiet Axis. This trio is not a political faction, but rather a protective line inside the monarchy. One that pushes back against the soft politicization of royal duty. Their approach is consistent, disciplined, and rooted in the old principles of service. values currently seen as under threat. One royal advisor summed it up. They don't chase cameras, they chase responsibility. That's becoming rarer now and more valuable than ever. Public reaction. Camilla's image faces new scrutiny. The fallout didn't stay contained within palace walls for long. Within 48 hours, the story had leaked into the press, likely through carefully worded whispers from well-connected aides on opposing sides. Headlines across tabloids and broadsheets hinted at internal tensions, but the real firestorm ignited online. Social media platforms were flooded with support for Princess Anne. The hashtag #WeStandWithAnne began trending across the UK and beyond. Users shared vintage images of Anne's decades of service, in uniform, at disaster sites, comforting children, and attending hundreds of low-profile events without fanfare. In sharp contrast, Camilla's polished press images began to feel curated, almost hollow, in the public eye. A viral comment read, "Anne didn't ask to be queen. That's exactly why people treat her like one." Public sentiment soured quickly against Camilla. The image she had carefully cultivated as a modern, grounded queen consort came under fire. Critics accused her of maneuvering for relevance, not reform. Some revisited past royal scandals, drawing comparisons to Diana's sidelining, warning history may be repeating itself. Comment sections filled with posts such as, "This isn't modernization, it's manipulation. You can't outshine someone who doesn't want the spotlight. Anne is what Camilla pretends to be." Mainstream media picked up the tone. The Times published a reserved editorial calling for transparent boundaries among senior royals. The Guardian was more blunt, writing, "When the most loyal royal raises alarm, the monarchy must ask itself, is tradition under threat from within?" Royal commentators and historians, typically cautious, weighed in. One veteran analyst said on live radio, "The Queen Consort's position depends not only on duty, but discretion." Anne, in that moment, reminded Britain what the crown once stood for. More than a personal clash, the public now views this incident as a symbol of deeper tensions within the firm. Between legacy and optics, between substance and surface. And in that battle, it's clear who the people have chosen to stand behind. Camilla's response strategy: defiance or damage control. In the immediate aftermath of Anne's revelations, Camilla's team moved swiftly into crisis control. A carefully choreographed public appearance was arranged within 72 hours. The Queen Consort, visiting a children's literacy event. Cameras capturing her warmly interacting with young readers, smiling graciously, her posture calm and composed. The visuals were striking. Camilla, the picture of duty. But those inside palace walls weren't convinced. The timing was too perfect. The setting too curated. It wasn't just an engagement, it was a message. I'm still here. I still represent. However, behind the scenes, cracks were already forming. Several royal engagements, previously rerouted under Camilla's oversight, were quietly reassigned back to their original owners, Princess Anne, Sophie, and even Edward. There were no public explanations, no acknowledgements, just sudden reversals, an unspoken admission that something had gone too far. Despite this, Camilla has not personally addressed Anne. No phone call, no letter, no olive branch. And within the royal ecosystem, silence speaks louder than any headline. Her office has maintained that everything was a misunderstanding. It was about efficiency, one aide insisted. Streamlining, not sidelining. But even some of her closest staff are beginning to question the judgment behind the moves. A senior advisor, speaking off the record, revealed,
She misjudged Anne's threshold for tolerance. Anne doesn't seek conflict, but she doesn't allow erosion either. Camilla now knows that silence can carry swords.
The queen consort now stands at a crossroads, to push forward defiantly, risking deeper fractures, or to pause and recalibrate, acknowledging that leadership requires not just presence, but respect. One insider put it plainly: the queen used to control the room. Now the room watches her, and it's waiting to see who she really is. A royal reckoning. What this means for the monarchy's future. What unfolded between Princess Anne and Camilla was more than a private disagreement. It was a reckoning decades in the making, and the shockwaves have forced the monarchy to confront uncomfortable truths about hierarchy, duty, and power. While the palace won't crumble overnight, the foundations have been visibly shaken. Anne's confrontation didn't simply call out a breach of protocol, it exposed a breach of principle. In an institution built on symbolism, perception, and tradition, that kind of wound cuts deeper than any headline. King Charles, caught between his sister and his wife, is reportedly pushing for a formal review of all internal scheduling, planning, and press protocols. Advisors have begun drafting a framework where no engagements or patronage assignments can be altered without transparent consensus from the affected royal households. For Prince William, this has become a turning point. As Charles continues to face health challenges, and with Catherine still recovering, William is stepping further into internal leadership. While always protective of his family's privacy, he now understands that silence from the younger generation only invites manipulation. One close aide noted, "William's now leading, not just in public, but in the palace corridors." But the most powerful shift may not be within the palace, it's outside of it. The public's emotional compass has tilted once again. Anne's defense of tradition, her blunt honesty, and her refusal to play palace games struck a chord with the British people. In contrast, Camilla's careful image crafting now feels tenuous. A commentator on national radio summed it up: "Camilla may have the crown, but Anne has the trust." As the monarchy prepares for its next chapter, the lines are clear. This is no longer about titles or press releases. It's about legacy and moral clarity. As one senior royal courtier whispered, "This wasn't just Anne fighting back. This was the monarchy remembering who it is and who it should never become." And with that memory comes reckoning, one the crown can no longer avoid. Princess Anne's stand wasn't just a moment. It was a message. In a palace often ruled by whispers and restraint, she chose truth. Her revelation has triggered a ripple effect, forcing King Charles to confront uncomfortable realities and placing Camilla under intense scrutiny. As royal watchers and insiders brace for what's next, one thing is clear: the days of quiet maneuvering are over. The monarchy is at a crossroads, and Anne, with her unwavering sense of duty, may have just reminded everyone what true service looks like. The crown may glitter, but honor is what makes it shine.